It is Buffalo week yet again. This is my 5th year with the Dolphins, so including playoffs, my 11th time providing some version of a breakdown of this division rival. And beyond that, working in the podcasting game since 2016, the year before Sean McDermott arrived and 2 years before Josh Allen got there. This is all a long-winded way of saying I've seen this movie a few times before. The Bills, to quote the late, great Denny Green, are who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook. All jokes aside, what I'm ultimately getting at here is the Bills know exactly who they are. They know what they do well. They know how to construct their roster around those strengths, those pillars of organizational belief, and it's helped them develop continuity throughout their systems where they can plug and play anybody, really. They can lose a star like Stephon Diggs and sustain their offensive efficiency. They can lose Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White to other teams. They can lose Matt Milano to an injury. They can play almost a month without Taron Johnson, and yet the results, well, they're 6-2. They have the 6th-ranked scoring defense and the 5th-ranked scoring offense. But I think where the Dolphins have gotten after the Bills' defense, they've gone heavy in the running game with Alec Ingold factoring in as a bulldozing, blocking fullback who can give Miami the numbers advantage in the box count when it comes to the running game. And as that run game clicks and softens up the defense, that is where Miami can get their shot plays like they did to Waddle for 45 yards in the 2022 game across the street at Hard Rock Stadium, or the game later that year in Orchard Park when Tua found both Waddle and Tyreek for long touchdowns. So offensively, establish your balance against a defense that knows how to vary coverages, get you behind the sticks, and unleash their deep playbook with rush games, unique coverages designed to make the quarterback hesitate, and sometimes that is all they need on defense. On the Dolphins' defense, well, this one's a little more cut and dry. Josh Allen, right? He's been sharp against the Dolphins throughout his entire career, really. His ability to keep plays alive and find completions that keep drives going, it's exhausting for not just the fan base, but especially for the defense. Not to mention, he's listed at 6'5", 237 pounds, and is not very easy to get to the ground. The buck stops there. Just as we saw last week, if a premier quarterback gets on a roll, it can be almost impossible to stop them. And the book on Allen has sort of changed over the years. Blitz him, play coverage. I mean, his skill set can often create a damned if you do, damned if you don't approach. But this Buffalo offense has changed its shape since about this time last year, which of course coincides with the change at offensive coordinator from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady. The Bills ask Allen to read out the middle of the field much more than they ever have and pair some of those looks along with play action, zone read, and the RPO game with an explosive running game that has given Buffalo an incredible amount of balance behind James Cook, their star running back. Now, like many of great quarterbacks with big playability, Allen's well-earned arrogance in his own arm does afford the defense with the occasional takeaway opportunity, and you absolutely must take those opportunities when they present themselves. I can think back to the Week 2 game from 2020 down here when the Dolphins had 4 possible interceptions go off their fingertips, and Allen closes the game out with a long touchdown pass that put it out of reach. Like the 2 teams in the World Series, the Yankees and the Dodgers, you cannot give those high-powered offenses more outs, more bites at the apple, and for this quarterback, it's the exact same thing. Perhaps the best example for Miami in doing that was the 2022 wildcard playoff game when they scooped up a strip sack and took it in for 6 and picked off Allen 2 more times, one of which gave the Dolphins the ball at midfield, another time in the red zone at the Buffalo 18-yard line. Now, both of those drives produced just field goals. So for Miami, create takeaway opportunities and pay them off with 6. That's my big key when the Buffalo offense has the football. To help us get to know our division rivals a little bit better ahead of Dolphins and Bills, let's go ahead and welcome in the man who knows this team better than anybody else on the planet for my money. He is Joe Marino. You can find his work everywhere. Why does it not matter who the Bills have defensively and they just continue to produce, it seems like? Because you lose so much personnel, and in particular, like guys that were stalwarts for a decade, and you know who they are, Hyde, Poyer, White, Milano's down, but they just keep on producing. What would you say it is about this defense that allows them to do that?
I think they just have a good scheme, and there's nothing super complicated about it. It's just a very disciplined operation, and it puts a lot of stress on offenses to execute play after play after play after play if you're going to score. The Bills really don't give up explosive plays, and because of that, they're going to dare you to say, hey, if you can execute 10, 11, 12 plays in a row and not make a mistake, okay, you can have a chance to score. But the Bills are reliant on 2 things: taking away explosive plays in the passing game with how they have their coverage shells, but then they also want to get negative plays with kind of an up the field style with their defensive front. And they bank on at some point, you're going to get behind the sticks or you're going to have a negative play, a penalty. And if it gets to 2nd and 15 or 3rd and 11, and more times than not, the Bills kind of find themselves in that spot, so we can get off the field. That's kind of the mindset. And that's allowed them to be interchangeable with a lot of personnel throughout the years. And they still have talented players. Like, I think that's definitely part of the mix, but there's been a lot of intentionality with developing players. I mean, the Bills did lose a lot of good stalwarts in a Poyer, a Hyde, a Tre'Davious White. They have not had Matt Milano this year, but they've had players that they've been developing for a number of years to like step into those opportunities, and they've been ready for those moments. So I think it's a sound scheme, but also player development. And that's Sean McDermott's bread and butter, right? He's the head coach of the Buffalo Bills because of the defense that he ran with the Carolina Panthers. And so it's been good to see that be tried and true through a lot of different personnel and a lot of different coaches around him to maintain that as a core piece of what makes the Bills a good football team.
I assume you've seen the Dolphins and Cardinals tape, or at least some parts of it at this point. You know, the offense in a lot of ways picked it back up to what it was prior to Tua's injury. I'm curious to get the opponent's perspective on how this offense challenges a Buffalo Bills defense and where it makes you worry the most.
Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Come on, man. Nobody wants to deal with those guys. Even it doesn't matter. Just you can be right on defense with your alignment and your technique, but you give those guys an inch and they can create an explosive play. And so those guys certainly present a lot of challenges, but I think this Miami rushing offense might be as good as I've seen it in a long time. Yeah. And I think it's the combination of what they can do running the football with a deep group of backs. I think the run blocking has been really good for as much criticism as the offensive line gets. I don't think they have any issues with the run blocking. Achane and Mostert, and now Jalen Wright as he potentially gets more and more opportunity. There's just a lot of depth to that backfield with a good run scheme. And so it's explosive playmakers in the passing game, and it's a rushing offense that I think is, really it's played its best recently. And so it just feels like if that all comes together, this offense can remind us of everything that it was last year and is the number 2 scoring offense in the NFL. So the Dolphins, I know that this season hasn't gone the way that expected. Obviously, Tua's injury plays into that, but it's a potent team on offense that, even if metrically they're not what they've been, which is obviously rooted in the starting quarterback being out. Nobody wants to deal with these playmakers.
Thanks for your time today, Joe. You're the best. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time these two teams get together, man. Not the result the Dolphins were looking for in Week 8 against the Cardinals. We're going to go ahead and break down a few plays, particularly third down passes from an offense that kind of found its rhythm here in this Week 8 game against the Cardinals as the Dolphins scored on 5 of their 8 possessions. Go ahead and roll this opening third down play of the game for the Dolphins offense, taking a look at quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and the superpower that he possesses in his anticipation and location. And throughout the course of this video, I want you to key on number 3 right here for the Cardinals, Budda Baker. He is a all-world safety who really empowers the Cardinals to run these various coverages that, quite frankly, I haven't seen much of these at the NFL level. They're going to have multiple versions of different shells and different hybrid coverages, man and zone. In this particular case, you're going to see one safety back off the snap, and Baker's going to come down and kind of key the middle of the field and play this robber roll, and he wants to kind of stamp out this crossing route here from Odell Beckham Jr., but the Cardinals are going to be a little bit too focused on Beckham on that particular play as you get a collection of 3 Cardinals defenders right there, and I want to show you why this happens from the end zone angle as Tagovailoa rips this ball against the off leverage coverage on this opening drive third down conversion. So here's the end zone angle. Take a look at Baker right over the football and take a look at where Tua's head goes right after the snap right here. He's trying to get information from the defense, find out where the rush is coming from, where the coverage is. Baker's going to hang out in the middle of the field, and Tua sees this little bit overload pressure here from the Cardinals pass rush as this linebacker is going to come, and you're going to see this all game long. They're going to basically overload portions of the Dolphins offensive line with their pressure and peel guys back off the other side and try to force these guys to not have anybody to block in the protection scheme. And so you see Armstead there, he's got no one to block, so he's gonna go help out here inside with the squeeze, and it's gonna be a 3-man rush, but Tua senses where that pressure comes from, so he's gonna go ahead and just move to the open space in the pocket where he can get that throw down the field to Tyreek Hill. And you're gonna see this play with great pocket movement, but the anticipation is what I really want to show you here. We'll go ahead and go back to the opening part of this play. Get the scoreboard rolling again. So take a look at when this ball leaves to his hands, rather when he separates his hands to make this rip. Tyreek isn't even out of his break yet when Tua decides this ball's coming out. Right there, the hands start to separate. Take a look at Tyreek Hill right here with this coverage off. Tua's going to fire that thing out there. The ball's already in the air, coming back down the stem. It protects the receiver from the cornerback, be able to make a drive on this play. And it gets a completion right at the sticks, right in time. And you can just kind of see this crowded area of the field that Tua is attacking. He knows this outside corner is focused on Waddle on this takeoff on the outside right here. So he has all this space inside to work with these defenders clamping down on Odell Beckham, moves in the clean space in the pocket, and throws with high-level anticipation and very, very good location to move the sticks on an eventual touchdown drive for the Dolphins. So we're going to go to the next play here. This one takes us all the way to the fourth quarter. Once again, watch the way the Cardinals just kind of varied their looks pre and post snap. They were playing this off coverage throughout the course of this game with multiple high safeties, and the hook zone defenders were getting deep drops. So this kind of shallow part of the field was open for the Dolphins, and they ran plenty of these Texas routes with the running backs coming out of the backfield and crossing face of the linebacker on the inside part of the field for easy completions. That's not what happens right here, but I want to go ahead and take a look at this. You get short motion out wide from Jalen Waddle, which kind of, expands the defense a little bit. And go ahead and take a look at where Tua's working on this throw to find Waddle on this little kind of curl pivot to the outside route that he runs against this press tight coverage from the Cardinals defense right here. And once again, take a look at Budda Baker. He's the guy that they're kind of trying to, basically give him free reign to do what he wants in the defense. He comes down and plays that robber roll once again. The back safety peels out into the post, gonna kind of span the middle of the field here on this Odell Beckham crossing route right here. And then Tyreek's action out this way and Jonnu's action this way. All of that influences where these defenders want to go and essentially creates this opening in the defense right there for Tua to throw once again with high level anticipation. The hands are separated, the ball's coming out, and look at that coverage. He knows that Waddle can win back down the stem right there on that inside leverage cornerback who's playing the man, comes out of the break, and the ball is right on him. And this offense really focuses on hitting guys right out of their breaks, because what that does is it maximizes the separation between the receiver and the cornerback when the ball's right on the receiver out of the break, and that affords run after the catch ability. As Baker sunk down so far on this play, the Cardinals star safety taking a look at Beckham, taking a look at Tyreek Hill, taking a look at Jonnu Smith. Because he sunk down so far, Tua knew he had that throw up top. Let that thing fly. If you go to the end zone angle, you'll see Tua's helmet really kind of dictate where he's looking at before the snap and after the snap to kind of get his information for where this ball can go based upon how the defense plays it. And he feels Baker kind of sink down right there and rips that shot to the perimeter outside the numbers on Waddle, outside leverage for a big completion and first down there. And what all of this does, all these critical completions where they force Budda Baker to kind of think about where he is in the coverage and make him tackle these receivers, it creates this type of opportunity that you wait all week for. That's Tyreek Hill, single man coverage, press coverage, and there is not a single safety in sight. That means we are probably going to take a deep shot. And Tua made all these great reads and throws on those last two plays where he has to process all this information about what he sees. This is as easy as it gets for the quarterback. Take the snap, go ahead and keep your eyes on this part of the formation to keep this safety occupied to the field, the wide side of the field, and you got your boundary takeoff from Tyreek Hill against a cornerback who stayed in phase pretty good, but you can't defend a perfect pass, and that's exactly what Tua gave Tyreek for this 32-yard completion on 3rd and 2. Go ahead and take a look at this angle right here from Tua. Just go ahead and catch the snap, hold the defense to the left for one beat, get to your one hitch timing, let this thing fly, and look at that location. I mean, you couldn't hand this ball off any better than where Tua put that on Tyreek Hill. I mean, that cornerback's in phase still. Tyreek got on top of him at the very end of the route, but that's a really good ball, and they earned that look from the constant attacking of the Cardinals zone coverage throughout the game. So Tua Tagovailoa, first game back from injury, absolutely dialed in. Offense scored points on 5 of their 8 possessions, 27 points, not quite enough to win the game, but passing offense, high-level stuff back in Miami here with the return of Tua Tagovailoa. What is up, Dolph fans, and welcome back into another edition of Dolphins HQ. And my special guest today, we call him Kevin, but you might know him by a better name, Kickball Dad in the house. What's going on?
Not much. Came down for the game, had a great weekend, and looking forward to this.
We're looking forward to having you in here, and I think there's a lot of folks that have questions about your origin story, I think is what I would call it. And let's go back to the very beginning with how you became a Dolphins fan, because you're located not in South Florida, right?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. So
My whole life.
Whole life in New Jersey. How did the Dolphins catch you as a youngster?
Well, I get that question a lot, actually, because born and raised and lived my whole life in New Jersey, and people are like, how do you become a Dolphins fan? And it was pretty simple. A couple of my uncles used to come over every Sunday, watch football, and I was 5 years old. I never cared up until this point. And one Sunday, they had a big black and white console TV. You guys probably don't know what that is. Look it up if you don't. But I sat down on the floor, and they were watching a game. It happened to be the Dolphins and the Jets. Didn't know either at the time, but I said, "What's the team with the fish on the helmets?" I think it was one of my uncles said, "That's the Dolphins." I said, "That's my team." And that was 1970, and they've been my team ever since, 54 years.
So one of the cool things I heard about you is that you have a spreadsheet of all the games you have attended.
I do, actually.
I want to hear more about that, because one of my claims to fame as a Dolphins fan is I used to, when I first got Sunday Ticket, I would use my VHS and record the games on tape. And I had a closet full of every game from the 07 season, the 1-15 year. I have all those tapes somewhere. That's my claim to fame. But you have a spreadsheet of all the games that you've attended.
I do. I also have probably 300 games on VHS tapes I still have. And that's from New Jersey. I haven't played them in a while, but there's some I probably should watch again. But I do have a spreadsheet that it's actually updated through yesterday's game. I updated it last night. But I've been to, living in New Jersey, it's not as easy as being down here. And I've been to 54 Dolphin games now, which isn't bad for a guy from New Jersey, who's got 4 kids and does a lot. Coach for 20 years, a lot going on. Sundays were always busy. But I've seen him play 15 different teams. It was the first time I saw the Cardinals was yesterday. They have a winning record when I go, which is good. Or clinging to that. So far, so good. I've seen 15 teams. I'd like to see them all before, my career's over. We'll see what happens.
I want to know more about how Kickball Dad came to be. When did Kickball Dad get popular, and kind of what was the thinking behind the whole Instagram account?
Well, Kickball Dad started in July of 2022, and there was no plan. It was just I have 4 kids. My oldest son, kid number 2, he had visited us a few days earlier and said our soccer team lost our championship the other night. We played down a man. I said, "Why'd you play down a man? Call me. 30 minutes, I'm there." So the next day, he calls me and says, "Our pitcher broke his ankle. You want to play kickball tonight?" And I was like, "Kickball? I haven't played kickball since 6th grade," which was true, since 1970.
Who has?
And he said, "So you don't want to play?" I said, "Oh, I'll play. Absolutely, I'm going to play." And my daughter, Alyssa, who's the brains and brawn behind the whole thing, she overheard this and came down and said, What are you talking about?" She was recording me the whole time. I had no idea. She had her phone down by her hip. And I said, "Rye asked me to play kickball tonight. She said, you playing?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm going to dominate." I started talking trash, not knowing, because if I wasn't on, I probably still would have talked trash. But I said, "Yeah, I'm going to play. I'm going to dominate. I'm definitely going to go yard." And so she recorded that. I didn't know. I immediately went right on my laptop and Googled Kickball Dad. Googled kickball. I'm like, what is kickball even a thing? I didn't know kickball was a thing anymore. I thought it ended in grammar school in the 70s. And it's a big deal, and it's national, and I'm reading about it. I said right away, I'm a rules guy. I went right to the rules. What can I do? Can I throw it at people's heads? Can I do? And she recorded the whole thing, unbeknownst to me. Then I played that night, and I believe it was my older son's girlfriend who recorded the game, maybe my oldest daughter, and maybe a couple of them, but they recorded the whole game. Again, I had no idea. And we won. I pitched. I homered, as promised. And
Called your shot.
Yeah, I think it was 2 days later or something, she said to me, "We made a video of you playing kickball, and it's kind of gone viral on TikTok." And I said, "What's TikTok?" And she said, "Well, first of all, it's TikTok, and it's social media." I didn't know what she was talking about. And it just went from there. People wanted to see more and were asking questions, and we had brands reaching out, and it just got crazy and just turned into it's nuts what it's turned into, things we've done and the places we've gone and people we've got to meet, and working with the Dolphins this. It's insane. I'm sitting here on Dolphins HQ and think, what? Pinching myself. I'm like a kid on Christmas morning every day.
Let's go ahead and close with this. Just tell us how it's been to work with the Dolphins. I mean, as a person that grew up a lifelong Dolphins fan that got this job and work here every single day, it is a dream come true for me every single day. I imagine it feels similar for you being here and being around the Dolphins and getting to work with the Dolphins so frequently.
Well, since I was a kid, I always wanted to. I wanted to be a football player. I told everyone, I'm going to be in school. What are you going to be? I'm going to be a football player.
Position?
Quarterback, definitely. Quarterback and safety, both. I want to intercept passes. I want to throw touchdowns. And then my mother wouldn't let any of us play football. We played every sport there was. We're not allowed to play football. So then I went from, okay, I'm not going to play. All right, I want to work for the Dolphins. I always wanted to work for the Dolphins. That was my dream job. and being able to work with them now is it's incredible. It's they're so good to us. Noel, Jill, Arlette, everybody, they're so good to us when we come down here. The atmosphere is incredible. The facilities are incredible. It's just like I said with the whole Kickball Dad thing, it's just surreal. Like we get to go to Dolphin games, which I've always done, but now we get to go as like special guests and we get treated like royalty, and it's amazing.
That wraps up this episode of Dolphins HQ. For more from me, check out the Drive Time podcast. I'm dropping 5 new episodes every single week of the 2024 season. Also, check out our podcast brethren, The Fish Tank with Seth Levitt and OJ McDuffie. New shows every Tuesday from the boys. Subscribe to the Dolphins YouTube channel for media availabilities, Coach McDaniel breakdowns, game speed recaps, and more highlights from all your favorite Dolphins players. Enjoy an exciting Week 9 in the NFL, and we'll see you next week.